care for them. And we will get it started. Welcome, everyone. We have a number of people here in the room, and we have a large number joining us remote. So that's very encouraging to see all of you here today. Hopefully, you will learn a few things that are useful for you and your outreach campaigns and your marketing to promote your conference. So I'll start by sharing my PowerPoint, and we'll get started. Go to this. And the center view. Can you guys at the remote place signal me if you see the PowerPoint? Can you see it?
Yeah.
Yes, awesome. Thank you so much. All right, so our workshop today is about learning how to do some effective marketing for community outreach, right? So I like have something in the chat here. Yes, okay, awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. We usually start, and I see a lot of new people and new faces here. We usually start by talking a little bit about our, let me see. Calendar for the year and the things that we're doing. Hi, welcome. It's all right. I think that's the things that we have done so far this year and where we are going. Believe it or not, time is flying, and we are way past the half of the year mark for us. We started this year talking about data. We will be revisiting that later when we talk about grant writing. We talked about how to become from an individual contributor to become a leader. We talked about what is coaching and how do you use it to empower your team. We had a second lesson on how to keep your team accountable, and we talked also about conflict management. Last episode, we had a guest, and we talked about fostering a strong interagency collaborations. We had What Acts here with Jennifer, and because it's an organization that does a lot of in collaboration with other agents. And today we are going to be talking about effective marketing strategies to do community outreach. So a couple of things to mention beforehand, and I'll mention it at the end as well. We do have a break in August. We will not have a class in August, and then in September, October, and November, we will have 3 more classes that have to do a lot about how to engage donors and grant writing to be able to get more resources into your organization. And last but not least, we will be talking about how to put all of this together, right? The strategy and the action plan, which I'm looking forward to as well. So just a few things that we usually observe when we are working together is that, to be present, to keep in mind that we all have the agency to change things around us, even if we think things seem a little bit difficult at the time. We have challenges when we are running our programs. You always have the opportunity to change things around, evaluate and change them. The next thing is that I try to have my audience participate a lot. So one of the things that I really like is that we all learn from each other and throw a few questions around when we are talking about the issues. So therefore, participation from you is critical, whether you are here or joining us virtually. Also, when we share, it's important to know that we are sharing a safe space. And even if we don't agree with one another, it's okay, but we practice to say yes and to talk about our own point of view so that we are not in disagreement with someone else, but we add to the learning together. So for those people that are participating remotely, if you have a question, please just ask it live, because I don't get to see every single one of you, so you can just unmute yourself and ask me the question. It's hard for me to see the chat. I will probably also see it at the end of when we have a break. I will see the questions that are on the chat. So the best is that you just ask me. As we have a couple of new people here, just one person, restrooms are back there. And when we finish the session, we will be sending the PowerPoint and the supporting documents. And you will also be getting a survey for feedback to see how we did today in the presentation. We always like to improve and having your input is the key for us to really get to know how to do better next time. Have a couple of things in the chat. People are introducing themselves. We have Consuelo from the Norway Housing Authority, and then we have Michael from Norway Housing Authority as well. So, he's the student success manager for the learning centers. That's awesome. I think that's a new role, Michael. So, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have Erin from Open Doors. We got Michelle from Pacific House, and Michelle, it's nice to see you again. We have Tristan from Help. Let me see, Help Inc. And then Brandalyn is coming from the communications area at Norwalk House. So she was here last week, and we just get a couple of people here. Last session, she joined us, and it was really a great addition to have Norwalk Acts with us. Then we have Robert from External Affairs at the Stepping Stone Museum. Thank you so much for joining us. It's great to see a new group of people that are joining us. I guess the subject is of a lot of interest for people. So, and hopefully, I mean, I don't think I'm going to have any magic tricks, nothing that you don't know, but hopefully we will put it in a perspective that helps everybody and helps you get started with a plan to do outreach. So, let's see, let's click on here again and go into it. So the things that we are going to be addressing today in our agenda are a few. One of them is to identify what are the most suitable outreach channels for you, depending on target audience you have for your program. We're going to talk about networking and how to reach more people by connecting with other individuals. And then talk about how we implement measures to quantify and assess if your outreach efforts are really working. So one of the things that is probably not new for you to know, but it's always a good reminder to have. Hi, how are you, Sharon? Welcome. And a good reminder for you to have is that basically achieving success in the programs that you put together in nonprofit depends on how many participants actively engage with your services. So this is key. Sometimes we like to think about programs and how the programs are going to run, and we hope that people are going to join our programs. But really, the only way that you're going to be successful is those people know about your program and come through the door. So, outreach for nonprofits is really about organizations, and it can vary depending on what is it that you're doing. But it always should be centered on building and maintaining relationships with the community and making impact into other people's lives. So when we think about outreach, right, when we think about marketing, most companies that are for profit are going to be, about getting good marketing now so that they can make more money. In our case, it's like putting some good marketing out there for this specific purpose so that we can get the people that we are trying to help through the door and really get them into use our services the best way they can. So sometimes when you're implementing a program, it is hard to think beforehand about marketing because your expertise doesn't necessarily lie on being a marketer. It lies on running this program successfully, right? Putting all the pieces that you need together in order to run the program successfully. So you think about things like, okay, what is my presentation going to look like? What I'm gonna have? I'm gonna have food for people. Am I gonna have a stream? Am I going to have a coupon to give them? Am I going to have a community fair? You think of all the logistics that come with running the program, but you don't necessarily concentrate on the marketing piece. So my position is like, when you are designing a program, marketing and outreach should be from the get-go part of your plan. It shouldn't be an afterthought at all. It should be something that you are thinking beforehand, and you should be making your marketing part of your plan already. So it goes along and comes out smoothly. What I observe normally with organizations is that programs are being put together, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, who's making the flyer? How are we going to promote this event? And it tends to be a very last minute kind of situation. Now, if you plan in advance and you make it part of your program plan, right? It is another piece to the program. You will probably be more ahead of the curve. So today we are going to think about different things that we can do in order to do this. The second point that I wanted to make is that marketing for outreach is not a one-time effort. It is a practice that you guys have to build over time. It's not that one event that I'm going to begin the flyer to, and then 3 months later, when I do my next event, I'm going to think of that flyer and what I'm going to do for that event. No, every single event or every single program that you have has to build upon one another, right? So it's more of a thinking of a continuum. When I talk about networking with people in general, right? When they're building their business and so on, I talk about how networking must be a way of life, not a one-time occasion thing that you go to a place and you talk to people about what you do. It's really something you do every day. When you think about marketing, it's the same thing. And especially if your programs are related to one another, you want that have that communication with the people that you're serving so they are constantly aware of the things that you're doing. And there is an underlying theme around it as well. So, like most long-term projects, in order for that to be successful, you have to have a clear plan, right? You can't pull it out of your, sleeve. This is gonna be super successful, and you have to really have a plan. Like, for example, Katie here has a really good plan for all the workshops we do throughout the year. We can promote them constantly. There is a web page for it that shows all the workshops. We know the year before what the workshops are gonna be, and they have a consistent image and they build into one another. So that's the key. So I know that many times organizations do not have a person that is specifically dedicated to marketing for the people they're serving. Organizations may have a communication team that cares about, for example, or has enough time to target donors or target other things, not necessarily programs. So what happens is that usually the outreach falls into the lap of whoever is running the program. But there must be some sort of a continuum within an organization to be able to pass on that information and talk to one another to make sure that everyone is on the same page. So let's talk about creating a plan and the kind of things that should be included in the plan. Just as a reminder, if you guys have any questions in the audience, please let me know. Just just speak out loud. The other thing is that I forgot to say is that please, for the new people that are just joining, we are recording this session. So if you missed the first part, it's okay. We will be sending you a link for the recording of this session. Okay, so let's talk about the plan and what should be included. Like any plan, you should have an objective. Why are you doing this? What is your goal with this specific initiative you are running? And what are you trying to accomplish with it? So usually when we talk about objectives and why are you doing things, one question that goes directly linked with it is how are you going to measure the success of this initiative, right? So for example, sometimes you may measure it by number of people that show up, by number of people that are, accessing this, getting access to the services and so on. So what are you going to have as a success measure for this program that you want to run? Then the next thing that you need to identify is your target audience. Who is your audience? Nonprofits tend to have a lot of audiences. We have the volunteers, we have the donors, we have the foundations, then we have the people that we are serving. It's very hard to be everything for everybody. So when you are promoting something, it is important to keep in mind who is going to be your target audience for this specific event. We can even go deeper and think about demographics. Is this event for women? Is this event for families? Is this event for children? Is this event for the elderly, right? What kind of people are we trying to get to with this program? And that's where we need to really target the the efforts. The other piece is the messaging, right? What kind of message I want to convey with this? Am I solving somebody's problem? Is it going to be a fun event? Kind of when you think about the event and you think about the objective, think about what is this event or this initiative trying to address? Do we want the families in Norwalk to come together, or do we want, people to have access to certain services? It's very important that you think about that. And once you have that messaging clear, you can start thinking about visuals. I have to say that most people become very enthusiastic about making flyers and putting pictures and things. But if you have the wrong visual, right, because you don't have a clear message in your head of what you're going to say and who's your target, it's very difficult to match those visuals with what you want to do. So what goes with your visuals and what stays with your brand? It is very important when you think about designing or creating a marketing campaign that you stay in the brand with your organization. Obviously, using the logo is one thing, but sometimes I see people using all kinds of different colors for their branding, which are absolutely not in alignment with what the organization's colors are, right? And I know we all want to become creative, but sometimes we have to kind of really make sure that we are staying with the brand. And the reason why it's important is not because branding is important, it's because people will identify with those things. If they know your organization and they know that your organization uses blue and yellow, they're most likely to remember that flyer visually or that marketing campaign you had online belongs to your organization because of the colors. So the next thing is content. What kind of content do you want to create? What is the message that you want to give? Of course, you have to have all the three previous bullet points clear in order to create some sort of content. And we're going to be talking about content and what kind of content can be out there that helps you build into that outreach strategy. But, it's kind of like, how are you going to be engaging people, whether it is to come to something specifically or receive certain services? What kind of platforms you're going to use? Nowadays, of course, social media has added a whole different layer to the way we think about promoting things. And even furthermore, social media is changing every day. So we're getting different audiences that are looking at different kinds of platforms. And so we have to really have a lot of clarity where do our target group belongs. And I have that, like a little blur on that for you guys. Timing, this is essential. We can't be promoting things last minute. You gotta plan in advance. If you have a flyer like a week before your event happens, a lot of people may turn out, but if you are promoting throughout the month and people know that it's coming, it is important to have good timing to promote and make sure that people don't learn last minute. Because people that will learn will be the ones that are closer to you. You will not get to those people that don't know you yet.
So can I ask a question about that?
Yeah.
So how early is too early?
I think 2 months is too early.
2 months is too early?
Yes. So you can do about 4 weeks in advance to start promoting something. Unless it's an event, let's say it's something that is happening, it's a big event during the holidays, you may want to start talking about it a little bit sooner because it falls naturally within things that happen throughout the year for everybody.
Okay.
But if you have an event, let's say this summer, you want to start promoting about a month in advance or so, and then you have to have different touch points, right? And so when you build your calendar and when you will be promoting this, you may want to go 4 weeks, 2 weeks, and then 3 days before promote every day.
Okay.
So that there is a lot of visualization. There's 2 parts that happen. First, people engage with your materials and they say, oh, it's good to know. Most people will not go to their calendar way in advance and put it in their calendar. So then you have to keep reminding them that it is coming. But it's good that they have it in their mind. So it's kind of first awareness and then reminders for people to really register or plan or so on. That comes along with the call to action, which we are going to be talking about as well. Also a budget. So this is one thing that is critical in nonprofits. We tend to be lean and therefore think about the budget for things. So kind of like an afterthought. But promoting anything costs money. It doesn't only cost money with the materials you may be making, it also costs people money. Like the time that your team is investing in promoting events. So when you're thinking about planning programs, and if your grants or funding allows that, definitely put the promotional piece in the budget as well, because it is part of the effort. It doesn't happen magically. You guys have to put effort into really doing that. And that comes along the team and resources that you may have. Who in your team is going to be able to help you out? You can't do it on your own. You have to have different types of engagement. And when you are promoting something, you want to know what the resources are in order to get your program through. Who are you going to be collaborating with? And this can be inside people or outside people as well. Sometimes you might be able to cross collaborate with a partner on the promotion of something, right? Let's say you are giving food for a weekend and you are partnering with other organizations that do other kind of services. They may be able to promote to their audiences what you are doing as well. And even if you're doing the same thing, I'm a big fan that people that do the same thing can complement each other with their efforts. Food pantries, for example. I mean, people don't eat only once a week, right? They need like different sources where to get their food. So in order for people to access the services, definitely collaborate with other people that are doing the same things. Have an execution plan, like we were saying before, which you asked about, like when is going to be the right time for me to start promoting my event or my initiative. Evaluation after you have done the event. And I'm not talking about evaluation specifically for the program you run. I'm talking about evaluation for the promotion you did for that event. It's kind of like an extra step that you have to take. Obviously, you want to know if the services were good, if people found helpful what you were doing. At the same time, you also want to know which one of my campaigns, the things that I did worked out best. And that can be solved with one simple question. It's not that complicated. So the other thing you may want to have is to have client feedback. Get people to give you feedback with what have worked better. Why is that important? Because that goes beyond the next time you do it, what is going to work out better. You can even talk about what you're going to do better when you promote your next event. Let's say, for example, you have an event with activities and you don't have food. And people say, oh, it would have been very nice if you had had food. On your next promotion, you can say, food will be available, right? It will make a big difference, but you will only learn what is needed if you get the feedback from the people that you are assisting. So therefore, but it's important to get it, because if you don't ask, you won't know, right? I know someone that says, well, we are doing great marketing. The only thing is that we don't know which one is the marketing that is working, right? So they do marketings all across the area, but they don't know. And I have to say, in businesses and including nonprofit, right? There are two things that people are not that prone to do. One of them is planning, right? It's hard. You have to sit and you have to dedicate time to really think through things. And for example, when I work with small businesses, the thing that I see the most is that people understand what a business plan is, but very little people put their heads into making a business plan because it feels like this big thing. In reality, it doesn't have to be a big thing. Same thing with feedback. I think that most people do not work on getting feedback. And so also because we always think it has to be this big thing, but it doesn't necessarily have to do. If you ask one question, it's better than if you ask 0 questions. And that's the way I want to kind of like look at things, right? When I think that this project is going to be so big, let's take it one step at a time. And the little thing that I can do now could be much better than doing nothing. And then analyze, right? What is it that worked? What worked in your campaign? What can we do from the insights we got from this analysis to make our campaigns better in the future? And how are we gonna use this data that we have to optimize what we are doing, what we have done so far? So optimization looks like, what lessons we learn that will inform our next steps. One thing is that, this is all a learning process for all of us. And since the planet is changing every day, we will always be learning. It's not that one day we're going to have the magic formula to do something. It's that as we learn from the feedback, we know what to do next a little bit better. And we incorporate that and we continue on growing things based on that feedback. So I think the most important key or element for our reaching and for your initiative is that you know your audience. One outreach effort may not work for everybody. And I'm going to repeat it again later on. We can't be all things for all people. It has to be a balance in really knowing who you're going to be serving so that you know how to target them better. Of course, in organizations, we are serving many different people and we have many different programs. What I'm talking about is when you have this specific program, you find your niche within that program so that you know who you're going to be helping out. Another important piece is that the media that you will be using will be determined by the audience, right? So in the long term, you want to determine what is your best strategy by asking one simple question. And that is, how did you hear about this initiative? Right? That's the only question you really need to keep on improving what kind of marketing you are doing. As long as you have, let's say, for example, you're doing an event for youth. Of course, they're going to tell you they heard differently than if you're doing an event for older generation, right? So you have to have clarity of who was the audience and how did they hear, and then start building on this, idea that you're building on your larger strategy based on what you are learning from each audience that you are working with.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
With that very last one, isn't that very restrictive? Yes, that's not open because there may be people with different interests on the same subject. We're not changing the subject,
Right.
but bringing people idea.
I think so, but I think you have a good point there. This question leads to think about what was all the efforts I ran, what was the most effective one, right? Because if we had like a lot of money to run different marketing kind of initiatives, of course we could try 5, 6 of them because different people get to us in different ways. If you have little time and money for marketing, then learning what are the 1 or 2 main priorities are your best bet. And it can evolve over time too. But you have a good point there. Yeah, it can be restricted because people learn in different ways. But let's say 50% of the people that came to your initiative heard in certain way, then the other 20 heard in another way, and all the other ways are like 3% smaller. You have limited time and money, you may want to invest on those that work best. So what are the different kind of communication channels that exist out there right now? We're gonna start old school and we're gonna talk about flyers. And I'm gonna make a case on why printing is not dead yet. We may be moving into a different way in 10 years from now, but as of now, flyers are still working. Social media is huge nowadays, but not everybody uses social media, right? And you have to think about whether the people you are serving are having easy access to social media. But to say that a lot of people know how to use their phones to get their information, but they don't necessarily know how to get access to all kinds of information. Newsletters, those tend to be longer and kind of more investment of time into making those happen. Again, it all depends on the kind of audience you're reaching, and we'll talk about the audiences and what they like best. Text. Some organizations have access to automated text. They can send a link and say, sign up for, this event we are having. Or WhatsApp messages. WhatsApp is very popular. I think that one of the things about WhatsApp is that people use it a lot to communicate internationally. So a lot of people are like, if you're working with people that come from other countries and so on, they will probably most likely have WhatsApp because that's the way they communicate with their families abroad. Newspaper, old newspaper, it's not same thing, it's not dying yet. There are ways to get to, the newspaper. Lisa made a face. I know you get your newspaper every day, right, Lisa?
Yes, and in Connecticut, it's owned by the same, the same company, so it's very homogenized. It's
Right,
not local anymore.
it's not local anymore. But the good thing is that you can get your same article in different towns, which is good too, because it's not so local anymore. TV and radio news. Radio advertising, I've heard a lot of that. Like I'm driving and I hear about advertising for nonprofits quite often. Partners, and then word of mouth. I put an article to this in word of mouth because I'm pretty sure that if I were to ask you guys, how do people hear about your programs? This is the way most people hear about them.
That should be the number one.
If you did the number one.
Mind fly. Just call somebody up and they just tell them.
Yeah. Let me ask you, what would be the setbacks on using word of mouth only?
Incorrect information.
Okay, tell me more about that, Charles.
Telephone. Yeah, exactly. So I'll give you a perfect example. This morning,
Mhm.
we had a young man called. He's getting evicted. Him and his whole family, like sheriff's coming right now.
Mhm.
And for some reason, he called 211 because somebody told him that there is money to call 211, this, that, the other. So he calls 211. They said, no, that's housing. And then he calls somebody else who tells him, yeah, housing has Section 8 and it's open. So call housing. So then they call me. And he's like, oh yeah, where do I go to the main office? They told me to go to the main office, set up Section 8. And I was like, wow. No, no, there's, George speaker, because I don't want it to keep going. We're gonna end it right now. All these people that you've been talking to, let me just let you talk. And I said, Lisa, let's talk. Is Section 8 open? And I had him on speaker so he can hear everything. And I said, this is, legit. There is whatever you've been hearing, whoever's been passing this information on to you, it's incorrect.
Right.
So we had to, Lisa answered it, we had him on speaker and he heard everything and that was it. So I just kind of helped him to go on the right track to look for some help,
Yeah.
But
Word of mouth can be dangerous in that sense because
Yeah.
people may be getting the wrong information, and also because when you do word of mouth, you are limited to only a certain number of people, the people that know each other.
Yeah.
So you can go. I'm sorry, I have to plug in my computer for those that are at home. I'm gonna be doing that. Yeah, because when you're doing word of mouth, you only get access to the people that know each other, and you are not outreaching farther where other people may be needing the services as well. So that's another consideration. Does anybody in the remote area have any opinions about these different outlets and what works best for you so far?
Also from word of mouth, if you get one bad apple per se, that had a bad experience or their expectations were not what they, what the, whatever initiative was about, they would say, oh, don't even bother with that. It's a waste of time.
Right.
So word of mouth can be positive and negative too.
Right. It's true. So those are the things. I'm gonna take a look at the chat and see if anybody has anything. Awesome. I have a few questions here that I'm gonna take the opportunity to answer before we move here. Hi, Natasha. I see that you're coming from the Well Grads with Liberty and an Academy of Learning and Enrichment. Thank you so much for being here. And we have Namukwaya from our friend from Nigeria, Uganda, sorry. So one of the questions was, when do we ask clients for feedback? Would it be appropriate to have a questionnaire on the same day, end of the day of program activity, or should it be an online survey? I have two answers for that. One of the things is that you want to get the information from people right in the moment. They're most likely to answer if you give them the survey right away. We have kind of a step away from doing paper surveys. They still are faster, even though you have to process them later, because people grab a pen and they answer their questions right there. So you want to know whether they like the program or not at that moment, and whether they felt it was useful for them. If you want to do more indeed, you may want to contact them later and see if that program had any impact on their lives, right? But things that you may want to ask, other than how did you hear about this program, which is specifically for the marketing piece, you want to hear like a great way to know whether people would like the program or not would be, would you recommend this program to someone else? That's an excellent way of asking as well, right? And then if you want to measure more in the long term whether the program was effective, you may want to find an effective way to communicate with them. I have to say, people do not like answering surveys. It's very hard to get them to answer surveys. So try to make your surveys short. There's, I really like getting feedback to people, but when it becomes a 5-minute kind of situation for me, I don't have the time for it. And so many times you receive these surveys and they are these guys, and then you have a bunch of other questions. And what do? You just quit the survey because you don't have the time to do that. So if you do surveys, just make sure they are short, they get to the point, 3 questions max, right? So that people really answer them. And having 3 answers is better than having none. So again, so Namkwaya was saying that she should suggest that at the end of the program, and that surveys can be conducted after every survey to rate. So thank you for giving your feedback as well. All right, so let's talk about generations. I think is my next slide, and what works best for each generation. So let's talk about age groups and so on, and what works for them. And why is this important to know? Because again, the people that you may be running programs with is not always the same. It's really hard to come up with guidance on how to do different outreach depending on where the people come from. That's because there is an infinite number of answers. Also depending on, on the gender and other diversity kind of things. But one thing that we know for sure is that because technology has, brought such a big change in the last 20 years to the way we live, our different generations are communicating differently. So at least you have a little bit of a guideline regarding the age group that you're serving and knowing what ways would be best to communicate with them. So if you are running a youth program and you are working with your participants at Generation Z and Z, things that they want to engage and how they will learn about your programs is social media. That's the first thing that they go to. And pay attention because they are not using the same social media we use. They're using TikTok, Instagram, and Snapchat, right? Now, of course, we are running programs and we are like, I don't have any TikTok account. I don't have a Snapchat. I don't even know how to use it. I have to tell you, I started using Instagram this year and it was absolutely overwhelming for me to use it because it was so different to my old Facebook that I was used to. Here, but these are points in which you can engage other people to help you out, right? Like if you have people in the office who belong to a younger generation, they may be able to help out with that. If you have volunteers that are of different generations, you may want them to help you out with that. The next thing is that influencers. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to give you one thing today that hopefully if you take with you today, it will help you so much. If you are able to meet one influencer and make them your best friend, you're going to be in good shape. I have to tell you, I met an influencer like 6 months ago. My social media has ramped up because she is helping me so much just by putting my name out there. It's just, it's crazy. So if you are able to meet one influencer that can help you, they like to do it. The most influencers are in the younger generation and they are committed to helping people. And they probably will be committed to helping your organization if they like what you do. And for them, it's like, well, there is a misperception that social media is fast. No, it's not fast. But they have more abilities than us. So what take us like, 30 minutes, they will take them a little bit of a shorter time to get that. So if you get to meet a one influencer, go for it. And they like interactive content online, like polls, quizzes, answering to those kind of things. So that's for new generations. Now, if we go into millennials, the way they communicate more when it comes to marketing is blogs, videos, and podcasts. They're more engaged into that kind of activity than TikTok and Instagram. They still use social media, but their social media is more around Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. If they are professionals, like, you can reach out to them in LinkedIn. And then they need their information to be mobile friendly. Okay, many people have outreach out there marketing that is you can't see well on your phone. If you can't see it well on your phone and if you don't have a link, then you lose that audience right away. So links are important. Like Instagram is terrible. They don't give you the opportunity to do links. It's very hard. You have to put in your bio and so on. You engage in other ways. So gotta learn a little bit about social media and make it mobile friendly for these generations.
Can I ask you a question about that? So what's your opinion about QR codes everywhere? Like, yeah,
I like them. I think they have to be used in combination with other things. Because we all have very short attention spans, right? Your QR code should be a complement to information that you are already giving. And so I have a point there in the flyers that I'm mentioning now. Yeah, in a flyer, you shouldn't be putting everything you're gonna do. So the QR code is an excellent help to give more details. But your attention grabbing should be through something else. Because somebody may like scan a QR code, look at it for 5 minutes, and then it stays in their phone, and then nothing happens. So they must be in combination with other things.
Can I just add, what something that we do, and mostly because of Instagram, is we create something called a tiny URL.
okay.
It's a service. You literally go to tinyurl.com and you can use that to create a smaller URL code. So like, often if you're linked to whatever your web page is really long, you could create one that's like norwalkhousingauthority.com/event1 rather than the long, and then that's what we put in our Instagram.
Okay,
So people, it's just easier for them to type that in versus
that's a good idea.
really long
It's called tiny URL.
URL.
And thank you so much, Katie, for that. This is a really good tip. Another thing that millennials engage with is email marketing, like constant contact and those kind of marketing. Now, if your age group that you are running a program with is a little bit older, let's say us, Generation X, email and direct email works still. I have to say that direct mail, unless it's like young mail, really helps because like we are being so bombarded with social media today that sometimes getting a little flyer in your mailbox maybe call a lot of more attention than constantly looking into social media. they also are prone to look into content and blogging. One of the things is that, I would like to mention here is that generation, millennials, when they think into blogging and take a look at blogs, they are looking more for educational and informative information. When you are blogging for people that are more in the generation X, they are looking more into deep articles, more like profound kind of information, white papers, and focus on practical solving kind of things. So,
Substance.
huh?
We are looking for substance.
Substance, exactly. Exactly. The generation X tends to be a lot more into kind of like looking deeper into something specific. With newer generations, they want more of an interactive learning, right? Like I've heard from many students many times, no, I don't read book, I watch videos. And so, if your videos have good content, you know, and it's perfectly fine. The thing is, I was asking an expert the other time, why is it that people are more prone to look at videos? And he said to me, it's because it's a multi-dimensional kind of media mode. So when you have videos, you can have someone talking, you can have a slide, you can have pictures.
Yes.
It kind of like, it wakes up more of your senses, and that's why people are more prone to watch videos. It's not only because it's like easy information, it's also because in a video you can use different types of media, and that really keeps people, more focused on it than reading a book. Like, to read, you have to kind of like sit and have a quiet space and really dedicate your time to read something deeply. Social media as well. Now for Generation X, the social media that it's more likely to engage is Facebook and LinkedIn. Those are the two platforms that are more likely to engage those. And now when we talk about baby boomers and the silent generation, they will be more prone to use traditional media, like for example, TV, radio, and print. One thing that is very important is that you ensure that you have clear, concise, and easy to understand messages. And also, for that generation specifically, include an easy way to contact you. That generation still picks up the phone and makes phone calls.
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What to know? No texting?
I was just asking someone today that I still write a check, and I will continue to write a check.
And you know something?
Uh-huh.
I start my day every day about 6:15. I open it my New York Times. And half of those things going up, I pay no attention. That so-called media is
A lot of times
it's crap. It is for young people who want instant answer, even if it is a stupid answer. Okay? And that is fine with me. I tell my son that he's 50, and I said, if you believe in that, it's good, but we, the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, and I get the Wall Street Journal only on Saturday because it's consensus of the week. I'm fine.
I call it watching TV. And then when you're telling somebody to watch something decent, and the young kids, they'll say, "Oh, that's so boring." I said, "Yeah, I forgot. You like watching TV. Is reality."
Say that times ago, and when we were young, people thought that TV was the devil. Yet,
Yep.
It's gotten worse.
That's worse.
So anyway, so basically, yes, so Nanukia is laughing because she says that she liked that baby boomers and the silent generation are together. They are two separate generations, but yeah, it's cool. They have two separate names, but they do. Somebody, Leticia, is asking me, what are the ways to market in intergenerational programs? I have to say, whether you like it or not, social media is something that almost everybody's looking into. So you gotta like have cross your platforms and decide what are gonna be the platforms that you're gonna be using the most. Even older generations are using their phone to look up information. So if you were to say, what is the one platform that is, everybody's using definitely social media. Now remember, this is about marketing. It's kind of about like, providing quick information for people so that they know about your service.
Exposure.
Social media works well that way, right? And if you are able to create little videos and make it mix it and match it a little bit, even better. I wanted to ask the audience, remote, if they have any questions, so far. We're gonna go, on a break in a few minutes after this slide, but I'd like to see if anybody has any questions from where they are.
Not from me.
Thank you, Consuelo. All right. So the only other thing I have before the break is to talk about making culturally competent promotions. So one of the things that that's why it's so important to know your audience, right? Because you have to think also about what kind of materials they will consider culturally appropriate for them. For example, and I'm gonna give this example because I'm Latina and I know it. If you creating a Latin festival, don't put Mexican things on it because not everybody's a Mexican,
Mexican.
right?
And all Mexicans are Latin.
And so it's kind of like you have to know your audience well. And you can ask themselves, what kind of things I can use for these promotional events that represents everyone, right?
Yeah.
So that's important. The other thing is that translations, if you have to translate your document, make sure they are accurate and in an easy to understand language. Try to make your sentence shorter, go to the point. For promoting things, you don't have to use language that you will be using to write an essay, right? You need language that is quick, goes to the point, and is clear to understand for everybody. And also promote it in the areas where you're the people, the audience you have congregate, right? Like, let's say you are serving the Haitian community, go to the Haitian church and help, to help promote that. If you're serving, let's say the elderly community, go to the senior center, right? If you are serving people that require housing, go to the places where people that need help for housing are. Like maybe, I don't know, not necessarily the homeless shelter, but it could be that, and it could be, areas where people are really needing access to, and so on. And last but not least, commit to your niche. Like I said before, we can't be all things to all people. So every time you think about promoting, think about it. So we are going to go on a 5-minute break. So it is right now, I always mess up my time, 1:26, so we will be back at, 1:31. Correct? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right there, yeah, right down.
Okay. Done. My 5 minutes go by really fast.
Yeah.
Let me see. I still have people on the other side, so we're good. So what we're going to do is we're gonna talk a little bit about the different outlets that you can promote your programs in. There was a question on the chat that asked, how often should I be posting on the social media? The advice I have heard from experts over and over again is that the important thing about posting in social media, it doesn't matter how much you post, the importance is consistency. Let's say if you're gonna post twice a week, always post twice a week. If you're gonna post 5 times a week, always post. There is this thing called algorithms and things that they use, social media to make your post more popular. Or just to fit it into other people's feed. And what they look for is just really consistency from you.
So when you say 2 days a week, it's the same 2 days a week, like a Tuesday and a Friday, or no?
It would be much better.
It would be, because
Exactly.
then your audience knows when to expect a new post.
Exactly. The best thing would be if you are able to make for yourself like a social media calendar that is simple, that tells you what you're posting and when.
And then the algorithm picks it up and they'll throw it out to, so if it's something that they know that I always look for, they'll throw. And then you'll always see it. So if
Interesting,
you've been looking for a sofa
right,
and you always in there looking for a sofa, then that picks it up and now she can send you stuff about a sofa.
okay.
So it's a whole
Yeah,
interesting.
exactly. It analyzes your interests and keeps feeding you the same interests you have. Which can be good when you're promoting programs because people will always see your feed.
Yeah.
It's fighting the general information sense on social media, which is a whole other subject because people are seeing only what is aligns with what they're thinking. Let me see in the chat. I have someone else. Sometimes a project is assigned a certain day of the week for their post. Absolutely. So sometimes that's what happens is, if you have something coming up. Now, the other thing that is important to keep in mind, if you are posting for a program that you're running within your agency, is what else do they have going on the agency that they are posting as well? You want to find a balance there, right? Some places may post daily, and you may have to get into their social media calendar as well to make sure that your program does, have a space to go in there because, like I said before, organizations have so many priorities and so many different audiences. It is hard to kind of get your spot. So that's why planning in advance is important. And I understand that sometimes things change. We talked about partnerships last time we spoke, right? And like how sometimes it may be challenging to work with partners because your timeline may not be the same as their timeline. And you want to make sure that, you get all the information that you need timely. So those are things kind of to consider, but yeah, those are a few tips around posting in social media. Okay, so talking about social media, one of the things that I have here is, of course, for nonprofits, it's good to use platforms like YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn to share content that they may have. Again, always in alignment to the people that you are serving. That helps as well if you are in alignment with the people that you're serving, because then your different social media platforms don't look the same all the time, right? If I follow you on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and I see the same post 3 times, it's gonna be kind of like tiring, right? So if you can mix and match a little bit, it is helpful for the audience as well. You're targeting the audience in the platform they like the best. Engagement is very important to be able to interact with the followers and respond to their comments and participate in the conversations. That eats up a lot of time. But if you put a post and somebody comments or asks you a question and you don't answer, then people don't interact with you. And the other thing that is good about interacting with people is when people interact with you, other people are going to see in their feed their interaction with you. So you have more reach because let's say if John is connected with 500 people on his page, a subgroup of those people are going to see that he asked this question to you and you answer. And they might be curious and take a look at what is it that you have going on. Video marketing is awesome. If you create short videos to speak about your initiatives and share customer testimonials, and provide educational information, it's a really good way to also promote what you're doing. I think educational content is great. People learn a little something and also become engaged with what you're doing. And also, having testimonials of the people you're serving, if they agree to do it, it's also really good. It's a good, feel good kind of situation going on there. When you think about marketing, online marketing, content marketing, you have to think about short-term and long-term. What is it that I'm going for? Like, what am I building into more than what I'm doing right now? What am I building into? So what I was saying before, if you are able to partner with influencers, you will be able to reach more audience and also build more credibility because people do follow influencers and look what they do, right? So then you can jump into that with their help. Social media ads are not that expensive and may help you to promote your programs as well. The nice thing about social media ads is that you can target it to specific audience. So if you say, I want people that are 30 years old, male, with this kind of profession, see my ad, they will be targeted to those people specifically. So that's something that is good to use. Other things that you can use in social media is to create events, right? There are like a bunch of tools. I would advise you in general, if you're gonna use social media, because it can be so overwhelming, that you pick like 3 strategies max for each, kind of event or program you have. Don't drive yourself crazy trying to do everything. Just pick a few and invest your time in those. Now, paper is not obsolete yet. So let's talk about everybody's favorite subject, flyers. Now, I've seen terrible flyers in my life. So I felt very compelled to talk about flyers in this presentation. I said, this is my opportunity. So things about flyers. Never forget the place, the date, and the time.
Yeah,
Yes.
so many people forget that.
Yeah.
Have you ever? That doesn't
Yes.
tell you where things are happening.
Yeah.
And also make it the most relevant piece after your title.
Yes.
It has to be big, easy to read.
Mhm.
If anybody's gonna look at something, it's where and when is this movie?
Mhm.
And always double check.
Yeah.
Page,
Yeah.
time.
Yes, has to check. I mix dates all the time.
Mhm.
So I will put like the wrong day of the week with the wrong date. Yes, excellent.
So can I make a point about that? So your point about having somebody else look at it, I think. When I first started a couple of years ago, I was developing a flyer. And I looked at it 100 times, and I had
Yeah.
a friend who I worked with in New York City. I said, take a look at this. You've never seen this before. What do you think of this? And I work for Catholic Charities. And the first thing she said was, well, do you have to be Catholic to take advantage of your services? And I said, no. And she goes, it says that nowhere on the flyer, Diane. And I thought that was a really interesting point because I had looked at it so many times. I worked for Catholic Charities. We all understood
Right.
that we help everybody.
Right.
But she was not Catholic, and her first thought was, well, I can't use these services because I'm not Catholic. And I said, I'm so glad I showed
That's
it
an
to you.
excellent.
So that's what I do now. And whenever I'm developing anything, I'll show it to my husband or friend. I'll say, what do you see when you see this? And
Yeah.
inevitably, somebody has a question that I have not thought of.
Right.
That's
So, because
excellent.
even if you show it to somebody you work with, they're like, oh, yeah, that looks fine.
Right.
But if you show it to somebody outside, they're like, I don't.
Cause we know what we do.
Right.
They don't know.
They don't know what we do. And those are the people we're trying to reach, right?
We don't know.
Thank you so much.
That's good.
That's excellent.
Good.
Excellent feedback and a great strategy you have in use. Somebody was saying in the chat that sometimes people pick up these flyers at the library and places, and they put it on the fridge,
Mhm.
to know that it's happening. The other thing that you need to make sure is that your content is concise. Don't try to put too much on the flyer. Put keywords that will kind of call people's attention, but don't. It can be overwhelming to try to read a whole book in a flyer. Make sure that your message is clear. Keep the text brief and to the point, and avoid cluttering the flyer with too much information, like I just said. Highlight what is most important, such as details of what, when, and where, and why. Right? Here's the point with the QR code. If you want people to know more about the event, you can use a QR code to refer people for more details to a page that they can go and look at. Have a compelling headline. It has to be attention grabbing. Use bold and concise headlines that conveys the message and talk about the problem you are trying to resolve. That's the best way to get people. Where is the pain point? This is something that people talk about in marketing all the time. What is it that is hurting your client right now, right? And how are you gonna put it in a way that they are like, this is what I need? Uh-huh. Make it a readable font. A lot of fonts are a lot of fun, but they're not readable, right? And something that is easy to read from the distance. Even if you think people are gonna come closer, like I'm looking at a flyer over here and I can see exactly, or it's a little booklet, but I can see exactly what it's about. And it's like pretty far, but it has font that is big enough that will like, I can read it.
Like us.
Well,
How much you know what's
Poison
inside.
you're putting in your
Yep.
body.
Right.
So you want to always include in a flyer a call to action. You have to tell your audience what you want to do next. Register, visit our website, and put it also in a visible place of the flyer. Make sure that you have an order and an organized layout for what is important, what needs to catch the reader's eye. If you select like 3 elements of the flyer, of which one has to be place and time and date, right? I make sure that you are arranging the elements in a way that that people are easy to read, break it out. Don't put paragraphs, use bullet points instead. And then the next thing is make sure that it's consistent with your branding, which is something we talked about before, right?
Yes.
When you think about distributing the flyers, it is important to go where your target audience is. Like community centers, local businesses, events, other partners that are serving those same clients. Also, it is important to have a digital version of it. In case, right, you have someone that prefers to save their information and look at it on their phone or so on. If you have a digital version, you can share it on other platforms at the same time. Sure, most of you do that at this point. And for yard signs, you know, when people have events and they put those yard signs that you drive by, exactly, use the same principles. Just use the same principles that you have for your flyers. Sometimes you drive by and you're driving. You have to be able to see quickly where it is. And sometimes you see these yard signs that are so full of information and the font is so small.
Right.
Like the only way that people will see it is that if they are walking. And we don't have a lot of walkers most of the time. Like people are either on the bus or driving or, you know, on the way somewhere.
Arrows, sounds but the arrow, where are you going? An arrow that points to another street.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So make sure you go through the same kind of guidelines regarding font, they're easy to read and all of that. When it comes to newspapers, things that you can do to promote yourselves in newspaper, have press releases. You can like send a press release of what you're doing, the newspaper may pick it up. And you know, if you have a template of all the information for your event, you can use it to these different kinds of media. So you might be able to gain some coverage through a news press release. Also, make sure you are able to build relationship with journalists to secure interview and features. So maybe for an event, if you have a really big event and you know journalists, they might be able to do a little interview before and cover your event that way. And also, you can write an article or a letter to the editor, and they might be able to publish it as well. So there are 3 ways that you don't have to necessarily pay for ads in the newspaper. I wouldn't advise it. Paying for ads, unless you are able to pay for many ads that are appearing like one after another, it doesn't pay back. But if you use press releases, interviews, and letters to the editor, you may be able to get coverage in by the newspapers as well. Blogging is another one. Blogging, now blogging is more of a longer term for people that do blogging on videos or writing. So you can create valuable and relevant content. If you are working with an audience that needs that relevant content for themselves, you may share industry or things, how to access your food pantry, how to access services in Connecticut for this or that, if you have a blogging. And also there is, you know, bloggers that might be, if you build relationships with them, they may invite you to an interview, or they may want to talk to you about something because they need to fulfill their own content as well. So if you don't want to blog yourself, you can have relationships with people that are already doing this and have them join you and ask you questions and, be your best partners. In the writing area, also email marketing, there's newsletters. I would say that mostly nonprofits use newsletters for funders and other audiences like volunteers and so on, but that doesn't mean that the people you're serving do not read newsletters, right? So you may make short newsletters to regularly tell people what you have going on at the agency. Remember, this is all about the larger picture, not about that one event promotion that you're gonna do. It's about building the whole story. It will make your promotions later a lot easier. There's something called deep drip campaigns, which are automatic series of emails that kind of nurture your audience. So you kind of like build a campaign that and that constant contact does that. And you send emails once in a while that have little tips or things that people can do, and so that people stay in. So when we talk about networking and talk about, partnerships, important things that is to collaborate with partnerships with organizations that have complementary services to yours so that you both can reach mutual benefit. Now, I have to say that if you go and ask, can you post this flyer in your organization, they will most likely ask you to post their flyer in your organization, which is okay. I think that us being in the nonprofit arena, we know that people have so many needs that as much as we can share about the services that are out there is helping us fulfill our mission in some way anyway. So if you have good partners that you trust, definitely make sure that you are cross promoting your events. Another one, be part of community engagements, participate in local events and support other community initiatives. Like if you participate in a tabling event, there is a fair or something like that, and you have the opportunity to have a table and bring information about your services, it's a good way to reach cross audiences for you as well. And attend conferences and trade shows if there are any webinars that have to do with nonprofits as well, because this is going to help you also connect with other organizations that in the future may be able to help you with your own promotions needs as well. This is all about establishing these relationships. Like we said in one of the first slides, it's about connecting with people and establishing relationships that are based on trust and so on. If you're going to do things in person to help promote your events, you can show up at other community events, like I said before, to promote yours. These are great opportunities to help provide information to the community. Again, go to where people congregate, like, for example, the churches or the community centers and so on. And meet up with other community leaders. There is a lot of community leaders that are doing work in the community, grassroots kind of work. They are connecting with people on a daily basis because they want to help. They may not even be part of a nonprofit. They may have their own movement, their own group of people, their own group of moms. They are also in social media. So connecting by people that are doing the work daily with the people that you're serving is very advantageous for you to help promote your events as well. Word of mouth, of course, we talked about that. So, tell your clients to tell others that you have this event coming and pass them a few flyers so they can pass them around as well. I have had good experiences of asking, how did you find out about our services? Oh, my neighbor came to visit me and she had this flyer in her bag and she gave it to me. So, and quote the news. Who knows? They may show up for your event. This helps building kind of like the longer kind of term objective, which is kind of like, what you're looking for. So here's a few links on how to contact the News 12 Connecticut Public. These are kind of like main TV news that will maybe, if they have time, they will come to your event. Sometimes they don't show up, they have other priorities, last minute things. But really, investing your time in talking to them and telling them, hey, I have this event, would you like to come? It's a good investment of time. If they show up, then you'll be on the news. Then you can tell your family, look, I'm on the news. All right. So last piece, client feedbacks and reviews. They're very, very important. So collect feedback from the participants, not only to improve services, also to improve your marketing strategies. Ask people to give you online reviews as well. Like I said before, you are building a story about what you have. So if people do an online review and they put a positive review about your services, more people will be learning that it exists, right? And last but not least, if you are able to get testimonials from people that you're serving, to showcase, your website and your marketing materials is kind of another complementary thing that you can do as well. So it is 1:55, so we have 5 minutes for questions or tips. So if anybody that is at the remote work wants to give us a few tips or things that they do that could be helpful for us, we would really appreciate it, or anybody in the room as well. I have 17 participants out there. Somebody must have a tip.
So I have a question.
Mhm.
What if somebody online gives a bad review? I mean, somebody needs to be able to manage this. You can't just have a Facebook page or an Instagram and.
Yes, so with is to respond. And so respond in a way that is, real, honest, and say, I'm so sorry you had that experience. What can we do? I would love to connect with you to know, what happened and what we can do better and what was your experience like. So I think if you have bad reviews, it's okay as long as people see that you are responding to that review. There will always be people that have a complaint, and so you have to take the good with the bad. So if you're gonna risk it to get reviews, you're gonna have to know when to respond and so on. Yeah, it would be great if we could have somebody that could do all those things.
Go and find them.
If we had money in our budgets to kind of like have the person that is in charge of that.
Yeah.
So that's why I said you have to be selective also about the things that you decide you're gonna engage in. You have to think in advance. It's like, what is gonna be my capacity to kind of build into continuing doing this. Mhm.
And as you were talking about the marketing part of it, for me, I think one of the most difficult part is you have the idea, you know your objective, you got your audience picked out, and then there's the time and the resources
Mhm.
that becomes a challenge. In most of you doing any further planning.
Mhm.
So you have to budget time and resources, that whole thing together
Right.
is what I think causes a lot more challenges than anything, because you can go further on if everybody is on the team can, go ahead, even upper management or whatever, somebody. So that's a difficult thing that I find.
Yeah, I would say time and resources be a little less tend to be more difficult if you are doing things closer to the dates when you need the thing out.
Yeah.
If you kind of like start planning a little bit more in advance, there are more chances that you can find some resources on the way. That's why the planning is so important, and that's why it's so important that when you're planning programs, you make your outreach and marketing part of the program. It's not a separate thing that we're gonna make magically happen. It also needs resources and it needs money to make it happen. So I think that's where the big piece comes in. Yeah. But yes, it's really hard to find time and resources last minute. So it does require you to think in advance quite a bit. But the more you build into it, the more natural it's going to become. Yeah. When I send the materials. I'm gonna send you a sample of a social media planning Excel sheet and the things that you need to like consider. I'll attach it. So that you kind of like kind of start putting dates and things that you want to do might be useful. Yeah.
Good.
Uh-huh.
And just one reminder for, you said it, so some of us have already heard, but some people came a little bit later. For those of you who did, Yvonne reminded everybody that there is no workshop in August, but we will resume in September.
Yeah, we will be talking about donor engagement. Uh-huh. All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much for being here today. Let me see, there's one piece in the chat. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for meeting with us today. The recording will be coming to you soon, and I will send the materials along with it.
Thank
All
you.
right. Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks
Bye.
for having everybody.
What time?